Hi, welcome to another episode of The Lab here on Good Cube Kitchen. My name is Yassine Butler, and this week we are going to be wrapping up Soul Food Appreciation Month with one of the staples of a good soul food meal, the cornbread. Cornbread is one of those parts of a meal that are just absolutely foundational. A good cornbread is extremely versatile. It can be sweet, it can be savory, it can be dense, it could almost be like cake. You never really know exactly what you're going to get when you bite into a cornbread. There's so many different variations and recipes. This week, we're going to make three different variations of cornbread. We're going to make one with corn actually in it. We're going to do one with jalapenos and cheese. And then we're going to do one that's on the sweeter side with a little bit of spice to it. So let's get into this last celebration of soul food appreciation. For this recipe, we're going to combine equal parts of cornmeal and flour, in this case, 1 cup of each, a fourth cup of granulated sugar. Of course, I'm using brown sugar. In my flour, I already added over 1 tablespoon of baking powder and a little bit of salt. I'm going to mix the dry ingredients until they're evenly distributed and then add over 1 cup of milk. And instead of vegetable oil, which the recipe calls for, I'm going to add over some brown butter and a lightly beaten egg. Once everything is nice and homogeneous, I'm going to split my batter into 3 equal parts. I'm going to use an ice cream scoop, but the best choice would have been to use a scale. Zero out the scale to account for the weight of your bowl. Weigh your entire batter and then zero out for each of the bowls you're separating it into and evenly distribute your batter between the bowls. That way you get exactly the number of muffins for each mix. I didn't do that, so I ended up with 5 of one flavor and 3 of another. As a heads up, I'm going to be giving you the recipe amounts for a full batch. You can divide the add-ins by a third in order to make these muffins. The first recipe we're making is a super simple spiced cornbread. So you're going to add 2 teaspoons or 2 capfuls of vanilla extract, about 2 teaspoons to a tablespoon of apple spice, which is nutmeg, allspice, and cinnamon, and then a 1/4 cup of simple syrup made with brown sugar. You can check that recipe out in the sherbet episode. The next recipe is super simple. You're going to add about 8 ounces to a full can of sweet corn and then 8 ounces of sour cream. You're going to lightly fold this to combine because the reaction between the baking soda and sour cream will give you a bit of lightness and airiness to your overall mix. The last version that we're going to make is a little bit spicy. So I'm going to add about 8 ounces of my favorite cheeses, cheddar, Monterey Jack, and about 1 jalapeno pepper. Now, if that's not hot enough for you, you can add more. You can add another spicy chili. You can use sweet bell peppers just to give it that delightful pepper flavor without giving it any spice. However you want to mix this one up, it's completely up to you. While you are mixing it, you may notice that it's a bit dry, so you want to add over about a splash at a time until you get a nice creamy mixture. This is especially true if you're using shredded cheese because the starch on the shredded cheese that keeps it from sticking together can sometimes make the batter a little bit drier. I'm going to spray these with oil, but the proper way to do this for a full size one is to take about half a stick of butter, put it in your pan, put it in the oven to preheat with your pan. Then pour over your batter into your preheated pan with your butter, which will have browned by that point. This is just a way to add another layer of flavor to your overall final product. You're going to place this beautiful cornbread in a preheated 400-degree oven for about 20 to 25 minutes if you're making an entire pan, or 15 minutes if you're making muffins. You can use the age-old toothpick test to make sure that they are done. Insert it into the thickest part, and if it comes out clean, you know your batter is complete. Just looking at them gives me so many ideas of ways you could get fancy. You could hit them with a little bit of sea salt, you can slather them in a little bit of honey butter, you could top them with some extra cheese, anything you want at this point. This is the perfect time to do it while they're nice and warm so that it will adhere to the top. Staring menacingly at the cornbread with ravaging eyes, I am now going to take my first bite of the apple spiced one. This one is really nice and hot, a little bit warm still. You could still see the steam coming from it. It was spiced extremely nicely, and all it needs is just a little bit of butter. That's the beautiful thing about a good cornbread. If it's done right, it doesn't need much. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do a whole lot, but it really doesn't need much. I might add a little bit more salt to the overall recipe because it was a little lacking on salt, and that's why I use the salted butter. Now to try it with the cranberry sauce. If you didn't catch the homemade cranberry sauce episode, then you're slacking and you need to catch up, because this combination right here is perfect. Cranberries and cinnamon go super well together, and this combination was just excellent. Next up on the tasting menu is our corn and sour cream muffin. Just look at how that steam releases. Oh, that's a beautiful, beautiful muffin. So let's go ahead and try it. This one's extra hot, so I'm gonna blow it. The corn and the sour cream really play well together. It is really creamy. It has an extra added lightness to it, which, as I said, was the interplay between sour cream and baking soda, which adds that fluffiness to there. Again, all this needs is just a little bit of butter. I probably could have gone with cranberry sauce, but I'm just gonna take this one as is. That corn adds enough of a sweetness to this. You could hit this with some cheese on the top. You could even throw some jalapeno or other spicy pepper in and just go haywire. But this is a really, really good one. Last but certainly not least is our jalapeno cheese cornbread. Look at that cheese stretch. You can't do that if you bake it as a whole piece. This is one of the benefits of muffins. My jalapeno wasn't super spicy. This barely has any Scovilles in it. It actually ends up more sweet than spicy, but that pepper flavor is still super important to the overall flavor. I really love the way that peppers and cheese come together. If you end up with some that aren't really spicy, you could always take a little bit of butter and a little bit of cayenne pepper and rub it on in there, and you have a great little thing. So, again, this is our last episode of the lab for Soul Food Appreciation Month. I want to thank you for joining me. As always, thank the good Lord for good food and good times. All that good is good cubed. Please follow me on all social media platforms at Good Cube Kitchen, GOODCUB3, on all social media platforms. And as always, have a blessed one. Peace.